everybody, and welcome to a bonus episode of From the Fourth Line. As Christmas Day falls on a Monday, we're not going to take the time away from our families and the holidays to record an episode live for you guys like we usually do. And instead of having all of our news be a day old, we decided we'd do something special because Christmas isn't, end of December is not only Christmas time, it is also the best time of the year if you're a hockey fan. It's World Junior season, and
The only season that matters.
it's the only season that matters. And with World Junior starting, when you guys actually, if you're listening to this on the 25th, which is when this is going out, if it'll start tomorrow on the 26th of December. And so we thought we would give you guys a little bit of a primer. We talk about the rosters, our expectations, that sort of thing. And go over just sort of the tournament overall as a whole. So, yeah. Welcome back to another episode of From the Fourth Line. I didn't even say that. I went right into everything else.
You got too excited about World Juniors.
I got too excited about World Juniors. As a Canadian, I love World Juniors. Not to go off of the success that Canada has had at the tournament in the past couple of years, and of course also years prior as well, being the reigning champions last year's tournament. Because when you have Connor Bedard on your team, it's hard not to win. Unless you're the Chicago Blackhawks.
Yeah, they're still like figuring that bit out. It's like we've got the guy.
Yeah. But now you have to have other guys play with him. But
yeah, you have to have like actual talent.
Yeah.
You can't you can't base the success of an entire team on
one 18-year-old. An 18-year-old kid from Vancouver. But we're not here to talk about the NHL. We're here to talk about World Juniors. So this year, the tournament, because it alternates every year between North America and Europe, it's in Gothenburg, Sweden, home of John Klingberg and William Lagesson, actually. Fun fact. What are the odds?
Favorite.
Yeah, so like the tournament usually works out, the play is split between two rinks, obviously, because there's two groups as well. Group A consisting of Canada, Sweden, Finland, Germany, and Latvia, with Group B consisting of Czechia, the United States, Slovakia, Switzerland, and Norway. If you look at those on paper, you're obviously saying, oh, well, one of those groups seems a little bit stronger than the other. And I'd agree with you based on team expectations. Group A is obviously going to be the more competitive group, even with Latvia and Germany there, because Canada, Sweden, and Finland are all three big powerhouses in terms of this year's tournament and with the rosters that they're bringing. And they all have expectations to medal, which is kind of hard. With how the tournament goes out. But also as well with this tournament, that news, we talked about this in a regular podcast episode, but neck protection is made mandatory at this tournament as well by the IIHF, which, if I believe, like last year, Team Canada had it mandatory, or at least I remember all if not most of the Team Canada players wearing neck protection, but I don't know, how common it was among the other teams. Other thing to note as well, which could give some European teams the leg up over Canada and the United States, is that the rink size is international size. So it's like Olympic size, essentially, which is bigger than the NHL. And what, players that are coming, players from North America, like on Team Canada and the United States, are used to playing back home. So the first game, like we said, starts on December 26th, Boxing Day, like always, like the best. It's the best thing because, you have your Christmas, whatever, you get to enjoy your Christmas, but then there's no NHL hockey on the 26th, but you still get your hockey fix with the first games of the World Juniors. The playoff rounds will start on January 2nd, with the medal matches being on January 5th, the last day of the tournament. So I wasn't exactly quite sure the order to go through the teams and talk about them, because that's how I think we're going to break this up a little bit. Because I knew based on the percentages of our listeners, if I start with Team Canada, we're going to get everybody listening to Team Canada, and then by the end, like there'll be no one, like no one's going to
It'll
want
just
to
be us.
listen to by the time I get down to like Norway and Switzerland in Group B. So I guess we can go reverse order of
Yeah.
standings. So that means we are starting with the promoted Norway. Norway got promoted because the way the tournament works is the same way of like European soccer, where the bottom team of a division gets relegated and then the top gets promoted. But so we'll start with Norway in Group B. Honestly, obviously very much one of the weakest teams in the tournaments after they've gotten promoted. So goaltenders will be important for this team, just in terms of how it can make or break at least avoiding regulation. For a lot of, for a couple of these teams, what they want to try and do is just avoid regulation. So goaltenders, so they have Team Norway is going into this tournament with their starting goaltender expected to be the 5'9" Marcus Roenbach Stenstrud. And now, if I butcher any of these European names, I apologize. I really should have listened to pronunciations beforehand. Did not have time. He'll be the projected starter. Now, of course, obviously, it'll be interesting to see how Norway plays him because he's only 5'9" and that's considered actually not just only quite short for a goaltender, but quite short for a hockey player as well. But they can make a splash with this tournament, with a strong performance versus Switzerland. I think for them, that's the big match that they have to try and win, because that is sort of how a way for them to avoid getting relegated back down again. Essentially, they also have no NHL draft picks on their roster. So, there's not, you can sort of, I guess kind of, so there's not really anything to watch in terms of players if you want to see how your team's prospects perform. There isn't any for you here.
Sadly.
Yeah. So, which is unfortunate, but they do play, if you want to watch goals getting scored, tune in for their first game versus the US on December 26th at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Because that Canada, when we get to the US, we're going to talk about how strong their forward group is. And I think, Norway that'll be a high scoring game for the US in terms of, we can make that assumption.
Yeah. I think that's really mean, having the first game. Like Norway, they've come up, they'll be like,
yeah,
we've done it. We're really good. We've got this. And it's like, who are we playing first? Oh no.
The US, like, like getting so excited. It's like, we've made the tournament. We've gotten promoted. We're up with the big leagues now. We're playing like in World Juniors tournament, because there's different divisions, obviously. But it's like we've made it in. And then your first game to be against the US, which is going to be known through this tournament for their offensive firepower, as we will get to and talk about in just a little bit. So it's definitely something. But yeah, some players to watch if you want. Now, of course, this is from the IIHF website. They put out an article ranking the contenders and they sort of had players. They have 3 players to watch for each team. So their 3 players to watch were Michael Brandseg Nygaard, who's a forward, defenseman Stian Solberg, and forward Peter Vesterheim. I think I said those correctly. If I didn't, again, I apologize. I'm not great with the European names. I just never the best at it. So moving up the rankings, we're going to talk about Latvia, which is in Group A. So they got the promotion to the tournament a year ago, I think. Now they finished last year ninth. But after Russia got relegated is how they made it into the tournament. Their goaltending will be the difference maker for them. You know, for them, they need their goaltending to step up because their big game to avoid being caught up in being relegated will be versus Germany in the group stage. And their goaltending will be the difference because Germany has actually a pretty strong goaltender for them. So they need their goaltending to step up. They have experience on the blue line with Nick Fonenko returning to the tournament for a third year. But their defense is pretty weak after their top four. There's not a lot of depth to their blue line. They don't have a lot of depth in general past their first couple of lines. So it'll definitely be one of those things where, they have a lot of strength up front, but, playing against those powerhouse teams that have essentially first round picks on every single line, like Canada, US, and Sweden, it's going to be interesting to see how it all comes out for them. So their first game is versus Sweden. Again, that's going to be one of those games where it's like, that's unfortunate that that's your first game against Sweden. But their first game is going to be on Sweden on December 26th at 1:30 p.m. Eastern. I don't know if, again, I'm going to run pretty quickly through these European teams because I feel like, apologies to European teams, I just don't follow European hockey very much. It's difficult, not to say it's difficult, it's just there's a lot of teams and it's you only really pay attention to the top prospects when it comes to sort of draft years and that sort of thing. And so I'm going to sort of run through these pretty quickly.
So I will say, if I'm being weirdly quiet, it's because, like, as I got onto the Teams call, I opened Notion where I keep all my notes. And an hour ago, I was like typing away, having the time of my life, and I opened them to start recording, and it's logged me out, and the entire app will not load. So I'm just like running through the Elite Prospects pages, just like panicking a bit because I have no
yeah.
doubt.
I'm just sorry. I'm trying to. I'm like. Anyways, I'm just. Yeah, here we go. There we go. There's an article that I want to. Sorry, I was just trying to. Sorry. Yeah. So I don't want to return back to Norway, but like I said, I'm going to list a lot of the players that I'm going to end up listing off are all ones that you're going to, want to watch in terms when it comes to NHL draft. Obviously, of course, World Juniors is that first big spotlight placed on a lot of all the guys that are draft eligible for the upcoming draft as well. So for Latvia, your players to watch are Dans Lokmelis, Eric Smateko, and Sandis Vilmanis. But yeah, so continuing on, after Latvia, we go up to Switzerland, and quickly run through Switzerland. They're expected to match this year's last year's finish, with their three players to watch being Rodwin Dionisio. Oh my God, I can't pronounce any of these. I feel awful. Goaltender Ewan Hewitt, and defenseman Daniel Ustinkov. Defense is important for this team that has historically struggled to score at this tournament. And obviously their important matchup is versus Norway, and their first game is versus Slovakia on December 27th at 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So Yeah.
We're gonna have a morning hockey.
A little bit of morning hockey. That's the thing when that's sort of a nicer, a pretty nice thing when this tournament is in Europe is, you get some morning hockey that leaves your nights free to watch NHL hockey when eventually the NHL restarts on the 27th. Um, but yeah, so next after Switzerland, did I skip over Germany? I feel like I skipped over Germany.
Yeah,
This is so out of order. I'm giving up on doing this. I'm scrolling back and forth. This is a mess. Oh my God.
the free for all.
The free for all. Yeah, I know. Can you tell I just want to talk about Team Canada
Yeah, you
so
just like
badly?
fuck everyone else.
Fuck
We
everyone.
want Canada.
I want Canada. So Team Germany is they're not projected to have a strong tournament. They're in a very competitive group, like I said earlier, with Canada, Finland, and Sweden. And a weak defense and loss of a standout star for them could be an issue when it comes to, a game. The big game for them is versus Latvia, and if they lack that sort of, they have a weak defense. That puts a lot of pressure on their goaltender, Simon Wolf, to be the one to watch with this team. And could be what puts him above Latvia if he's able to hold his own with a weaker defense in front of him. Only 3 NHL drafted players, all playing in Europe. So that rink size, like I mentioned before, still could be an advantage to them against Canada. But they're also primarily an older team as well. And their first game is versus Finland on December 27th at 8:30 Eastern Standard Time. Now, sorry, I totally skipped. Okay, now we can talk about Slovakia. Slovakia's Group B. They are low on drafted talent in terms of NHL drafts, but the spotlight and their big one to watch in this tournament is forward Dalibor Dvorsky, drafted by St. Louis, who is currently playing in the OHL with the Sudbury Wolves, and in 20 games played has 18 goals, 16 assists for a combined 34 points. That is nearly a goal a game pace.
Nice.
Which obviously, so he will be the one to watch for sure for Slovakia in terms of he will be probably a very big part of their strong forward group. They do have a pretty thin defense, but they might be able to compensate for it by just using the fact that their forward group is very strong to their advantage. Goaltender, their projected starter for this tournament is, in terms of goaltending, is Adam Gajan, who's drafted by Chicago. And their first game is versus Czechia on December 26th at 6 a.m. Eastern. Moving on, we have Finland. Here we go. I have Finland. I actually don't have a lot of notes on Finland. Finland, for their big one to watch in terms of players, is in the OH, who's is forward Kasper Halttunen, who is currently playing in the OHL for the London Knights. Lot of London Knights representation this year, which we will also discuss when we start talking about Team Canada as well. Top 10 in OHL goal scoring currently, and is currently drafted by San Jose Sharks. They have 5 players who are eligible for the 2024 draft, and they have the capacity to bring pro style hockey to the tournament, with a lot of their players currently playing in the league, the Liga, which I believe is the Finnish professional hockey league. And they will play their first game against Canada on December 26th at 8:30 Eastern. And then I'm zooming through these. Well, so let's talk about Sweden. If we're moving in order, here we go. Sweden. So Sweden has 9 returning players from last year's roster, which is, pretty high when we start talking about these top performing teams. With 19 of their players drafted to NHL teams, 9 of those players in the first round. And they named named Minnesota prospect Liam Ongren as their team captain, and their A's as Elias Solomonson, Axel Sandin, Palika, Noah Oslin, and Oscar Peterson. They have a very strong blue line. And I think, with just the pedigree that they have in terms of players on their team that have been drafted to NHL teams, I think for sure they are expected to perform highly. I think for them, they will definitely be expected to make a run for a medal. Whether that means they challenge Canada and the US for gold or silver, or if that means, they're playing in the bronze medal match, they will definitely be expected to make it to the medal match, bar any upsets. And now we get to talk about I'll talk about Czechia, and then we'll spend some time talking about the United States and Canada, because I think just based on the demographic of our show, I think that's the two teams that most people care about. So Czechia has a mix of players currently playing in North America and Euro teams. I think for the most part, in terms of when it comes to among the European teams, they're one of the ones that has a pretty even mix between players who are playing in North America, whether that be at the ECHL level, whether that be at the at the CHL level, whether that be in AHL level. Like it's all over the place, but they also do have players playing on European teams as well. Lack of depth down the roster, so they're going to need to rely on a collective effort if they want to, sort of near the success that they had last year with a silver medal finish. They had a really strong performance last year, making it to the gold medal game, unfortunately, then eventually losing to Canada in overtime on a Connor Bedard goal. Again, craziness to witness, but we'll talk about Canada a little bit later. I think for sure, we're definitely not going to see as strong of a team as we did last year. Don't expect them to potentially make another medal run. But, I wouldn't be surprised if they do make it to the semifinals. In fact, that probably is at least their expectation, especially, with Norway and Switzerland in their grouping as well. So their first game is versus Slovakia on December 26th at 6 a.m. Eastern. Now the time I've all been waiting for. We can talk about the U.S. So now we're going to talk about U.S. and Canada as well. So Team USA in Group B, they have a very strong roster in terms of a lot of drafted players. They only have 2 players named to their roster who have not been drafted by NHL teams and are 2024 draft eligible. Those are goaltender Sam Hillebrandt, who was passed in the past 2 draft cycles, but I feel like for him, the expectation is, behind, expected starter Trey Augustine, who if he, has some good showings, if they do put him in games, which I think they will, you definitely could see he's a player. He could be a player to watch in terms of where, if he does get drafted, or sort of if he, moves up some teams' draft orders, for sure. I feel like, especially with the way that goaltending is right now in the NHL, not to say that we could, not saying that we will see him in the NHL next year, but I feel like there's a lot of teams who want to bolster their goaltending pipeline in the NHL. So we definitely could see some opportunities come up for him, dependent on his performance in this tournament. And then also defenseman Zeev Biam. They're both the only 2 undrafted players. So like I said earlier, the strength for this team is the goaltending with Trey Augustine as the projected starter for the tournament, as well as the forward, the forward strength as well. They have a lot of strength up front. Like if I just run through this list of forwards for this team and just, you hear some of the names on here. I'm just going to run through a couple. You've got Cutter Gauthier, Ryan Leonard, Rutger McGroarty, Frank Nazar III, Will Smith, Gabe Perreault, Danny Nelson, Isaac Howard, Gavin Brindley. That's
absolutely stacked.
That's a very high pedigree. There's oh my God, there's one, two, three players coming from UMich, two from UMin, and that's just in this forward group, by the way. Two from Boston College, four from Boston College in this forward group. Jesus. Oh, and then there's two defense. Oh my God. Anyways, Boston College is a big has a lot of players on this roster. But yeah, so obviously for them, they need to control the pressure that they place on themselves. They're going to go into this tournament expecting to dominate, especially in the group stage, as they are notably in the projected weaker group, and they can't allow them. I feel like they can't allow themselves to take it easy in the round robin stages of this tournament because of that.
Yeah.
If they decide to, be like, oh, we're playing Norway, whatever, they're the, most recent team promoted to the tournament, we can maybe not play as hard as we do. And that could end up in some of these closer matchups where,
that's how you lose.
Exactly. That's
what the Leafs are doing a lot at the moment.
Exactly. And, not to point to the way that the Leafs performance against bottom six teams so far this season. It definitely is something where it's you want to, not let the confidence that you still want to be confident and that you can perform well, but you don't want the confidence to get almost cocky, right? There's a difference between confident and cocky, and I think that's what's really, really important for this team, especially with, they do have quite a few returning players as well from last year's tournament. And I think so, in terms of also just like in who to watch on the blue line as well, Lane Hudson, I watched the first two periods of the prelim game versus Canada and the US, and obviously Lane Hudson had a really high impact. He was a really high impact player for this team. Obviously, he is returning to the tournament. He was on the team last year, so definitely, one of those things where it'll be fun to watch this team play hockey, I will say.
Yeah.
So, in their first game, like I said, is versus Norway on December 26th at 11 a.m. Eastern. So so they also have named their captains as well. They've named their captaincy group. So Rutger McGroarty, I hope that's how you say his name. I don't know.
I don't actually think I've ever heard anyone say it out loud.
I don't think I've seen it on Twitter so many times. But I don't think I've ever seen anybody say it out loud. But he is their captain. And then their A's are Gavin Brindley, Cutter Gauthier, Lane Hudson, and Ryan Chesley. And let's talk about the team that I'm so excited to talk about. Team Canada.
I wonder who that could be.
Prepare for my national bias to leap out. I'm Canadian and I don't hide it, and my patriotism really shines through in international sporting competitions. Whether it's the Olympics, whether it's World Championships, whether it's World Juniors, whether it's whatever, I do really enjoy seeing Canada reign supreme. And
It's your time to shine.
It's my time to shine. I mean, before we move on to Canada, I don't know if you have anything to add with the US, because I feel like this is just me talking with my
Yeah, no,
multi.
I am excited to watch because as well, like it's a team you want to watch every year because it's always going to be very competitive, but especially after how it ended for them last year.
Yeah.
They're not messing around this year.
No,
So that's gonna be
absolutely.
really fun to watch them just like out for blood.
Yeah, for sure. Like that semifinals loss, that that semifinals loss versus Canada, in which they were lost 6-2, which is, for how evenly matched these Canada and the US are every year. They're going to be out for blood, and they're going to want to redeem themselves. But, definitely a lot of people have them to have the stronger projected lineup compared to Canada, which, sure. I think, a lot, obviously, we'll talk about Canada now, because I think it's hard to not talk about one team without talking about the other.
Yeah.
So obviously Canada is the defending champions for 2 years in a row. So they're trying to do the historic three-peat, which is something that's never been done in the history of the tournament, which I'm so excited about, because either way, it makes for a really good narrative. They get the three-peat, they make history. It's a huge deal. And then they go trying to win 4 years in a row, going into hosting in Ottawa, because that's where the tournament is in 2025, and next tournament is in Ottawa. So they're going to then be defending, and trying to win 4 in a row at home. The other way you can look at it, which I don't even want to think about, but knock on wood, they lose, and then then it's redemption at home in Ottawa. Both are good storytelling wise.
We love a good narrative.
Yeah, we love a good narrative. Now, Canada has not named their captaincy groups as well, which is interesting. Now, there's a lot, obviously a lot of people are predicting that Owen Beck will, from the Peterborough Petes, will be the captain, as he is the only returnee from last year's gold medal winning team. So of note, there is a lot. There's only 3 undrafted players on this team. One of them being projected first overall for the 2024 draft, Macklin Celebrini, who is currently a freshman at Boston College, and he is the one to watch this tournament. I feel like not just for Team Canada, but also for the entire tournament. Obviously, in the same way that Connor Bedard was the one to watch last year, because he is the projected first overall for the draft. That just kind of puts a little bit of an extra spotlight as well. He's also the only 2006 born player on Canada's roster as well. This is a very... Yeah, I know. That's the same age as my sister. I know.
Like, he's young. Oh, he's younger than my sister.
He's the same age as my sister.
Oh,
I know. Yeah.
So weird. I don't like it. Like,
I know.
You should be fucking doing your homework.
Yeah.
What are you doing? But getting drafted next year. Fuck off.
Getting drafted, playing. Yeah. But yeah, so obviously he will be the one to watch. Also as well, because we are so the other one of the other undrafted players is maybe projected goaltender. Unsure how the goaltending is going to shake out for this tournament, but Samuel St. Hilaire, who is also undrafted, note about him, actually, he was invited to Leafs development camp this season. So if you're looking for a Leafs connection, because we love the Leafs connections, which we will Leafs connection. So there's that as well. Also talking about the Leafs. Leafs prospects, like we've said on the podcast multiple times, Leafs prospect Fraser Minton and Easton Cohen both make the roster.
Woo!
Both are the first Leafs prospects to make Team Canada roster since Ian Scott did in 2019, but they are the first skaters since Travis Dermott and Mitch Marner in 2016. So
Look at him go.
we're so proud. We're so proud. Actually, so in today's exhibition match versus the US, they had them on the same the same penalty kill, which is, you love to see it. You love to see it because you can sort of make that be the expectation for for the Leafs, give them a couple years.
Yeah. Oh,
we know that for living doesn't want to move them, so it is a really exciting, especially for Leafs fans, who do want to take a look at what it could be like to have Minton and Cohen playing on the same team. Definitely, pay attention to these Team Canada games as well. So also as well to note, Boston Bruins forward Matt Poitras was added to the lineup as a 13th forward. He's the only player who was borrowed from an NHL team, or was granted permission from an NHL team to play in the tournament. Officially, like all of the guys who were signed to NHL contracts had to get permission, quote unquote. Like I'm putting permission in quotations, but it was more of a formality than anything else. He was the only one who was, currently playing NHL games and is missing out on NHL hockey to be in this tournament. In 27 games, though, for the Boston Bruins this season, he has 5 goals, 8 assists, joins Minton as the only players with NHL experience in regular season. A couple of these guys have been in training camps, obviously, like Easton Cohen, and have played in preseason games, but he's the only one with, playing in they're the only two who have made their NHL debuts. The primary concern for this team actually is the lack of size. Yes, it's a junior tournament, but it's always been like a 19-year-old tournament, just because of how things have shaken out with just, wanting to have big players. So you need 19-year-olds, right? Because only Matthew Wood and Connor Geekie are players that clock in at or above 6'3", in terms of outside of the goal crease, so not including goalies.
Yikes.
Which is small. Also, news that we got today, that it was confirmed that Jorian Donovan and Ty Nelson are in for Tanner Molendyk and Tristan Luneau, as Molendyk has a wrist injury that he sustained in a exhibition game versus Switzerland, and Luneau is and they found out today that it was severe enough that it could not be listed as day-to-day, and Luneau is suffering from a viral infection, so he's been sent home to recover properly. As well, and Canada will play their first game against Finland on December 26th at 8:30 Eastern. To note about Canada's schedule, however, this is the only game outside of obviously the playoff rounds, but this is the only game for Canada in the group stage that is at 8:30. All of their other games are at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, which makes it difficult for me to watch as someone who's going to be working during the day. So I can't watch any of these games unless they go to overtime, and I can maybe catch like the last 10 minutes of, I can, maybe be able to catch the last period in a bit. And maybe
fun.
overtime.
I'll sit there watching and just sending you little updates.
Yeah. Tell me how our little Leafs are doing. But yeah, some
That's
other
the one good thing about them being a small team. It's like they're like qualified little guys.
they're qualified little guys. Yeah. So obviously, to talk a little bit about this roster in terms of um players to note and that sort of thing as well. Um so, hold on, I'm just scrolling through it. It's not loading. There we go. So yeah, I think well, I'm trying to think. I'm like going through this here to watch. So, there's a couple, this forward group has there's some pretty exciting names to watch in terms of this forward group. Like I said, Connor Geeky, Matthew Savoie, um, Owen Beck as well. Owen Allard is from who is playing in the Sioux with the Greyhounds. Uh, Kyle Dubas follows us everywhere. Jesus Christ.
We will never escape that, Mom. Ever.
No, we will not. But yeah, even the blue line as well for this team. Obviously, losing Molendyk and Luneau is a big hit for this team. Just because they were definitely they were some strong players for this team, and to lose them definitely, could weaken this team. But who knows? Both Nelson, both Nelson and Donovan had some really strong, had some strong camps, and even Donovan played in today's exhibition game versus the U.S. and was named Canada's player of the match, and he played a really good game considering he had like just gotten off the plane like today from Canada to arrive in Sweden and like was running on very little sleep. So I think, if we get him well rested and, he could, maybe he could have an impact on this team for sure as well. Some other guys on the blue line to watch as well is Oliver Bonk from the London Knights and Maverick Lamoureux from who plays in Drummondville in the Q. No, the thing I love about the World Juniors is that team. It's one of those times where you look at the rosters, and unless you really really actively follow junior hockey or collegiate hockey, it's sometimes difficult um to remember a lot of the player names seem very very familiar, and it's sort of hard to remember exactly where you heard them from. Like maybe you're like, oh, this name sounds really really familiar. I think maybe I just remember him being drafted or whatever or something or other. Now if the name Maverick Lamoureux sounds very familiar to you, and perhaps you watched the 2022 NHL draft, in which Maverick Lamoureux's parents famously, after he got drafted by the Arizona Coyotes, they were famously caught on the broadcast of the draft aggressively making out on live television after their son got drafted into the NHL. Because I had the same feeling, because I was looking at this roster and I was like going through, I was like, okay, yeah, like obviously as someone who lives in Ontario, the OHL is very familiar to me and I hear about a lot of these guys all the time, especially, I live in Ottawa, which is a city that has an OHL team. So I was like, oh, a lot of these guys sound familiar. And then of course, also as well, you have a couple Leafs prospects in there. And I was going through and I was like, that name sounds so familiar to me. But like, I don't watch the Q. I don't watch, I don't watch the Q. I don't watch that hockey. I'm not really an Arizona Coyotes fan. I don't really follow their, prospect pool. So I Googled his name. I was like, where maybe he was where have I heard that name before? And I like Google his name and I'm like, oh, I want to, maybe it's the face. Maybe I just remember the face. And I click on images and like right there is the screen grab.
Oh.
Parents are like tonguing it in on the broadcast. I was like, that's where I know his name.
Oh.
His parents were making out at the draft.
It's like poor kids like just trying to play hockey, and it's like all anyone knows him for is his parents.
His parents making out.
Vibrant reaction.
A very
enthusiasm.
The enthusiasm for him getting drafted by the Arizona Coyotes.
Went, oh fuck yeah, Arizona. And then they were very happy about it.
Very happy about it, yeah. Just
they were pleased, to say the least.
They were pleased, to say the least. Oh boy. No, I don't know if you have any notes to add on Team Canada. I do want to say, like, I watched those first 2 periods of the game, and there's some things that this team hopefully has the chance to work on before, they sort of, as they make their way through this tournament, probably is what I'm trying to say. There is some aspects to their game that are a little bit sloppy, and you could see that definitely against the U.S. for sure. Just line changes for them are an issue. In one period, they took too many men penalties, which like very, very Leafs of them.
Watching the Leafs.
Just because you have 2 Leafs prospects on your roster does not mean you have to start acting like the team.
You are cursed by the too many men.
Fraser Minton was taking the wrong lessons from his 4 games with the Leafs.
Oh god.
He was not getting the right advice from John Tavares when he was living in his basement.
No, John was giving him the right advice, and then Matthew and I just sat there like whispering in his ear, like, it's 6 of you on, not 5. Ignore what the old man says.
When they're in the bunk, when there's laying in bed in their bunk beds. I don't know if John Tavares has bunk beds in his basement. Maybe he does.
Oh my god, I really hope they had bunk beds. I mean, having a massive sleepover.
And depending on how things go, John Tavares could maybe have to have bunk beds. I don't know where I don't know when Easton Cohen is going to make the Leafs, but you almost have to think of like if he does next season, and so does Fraser Minton. Are they going to both live in John Tavares' basement?
You can't split. They're like frequently bought together.
Well,
they do not separate.
They were rooming together at camp, at the Team Canada camp, and so you almost have to assume as much that they're rooming at the tournament for sure as well.
Yeah. Oh, I love him so
much. Easton Cohen, though, I will say he did actually have, watching him against the U.S., I was like, and watching the way he moves on the ice and how I was like, oh my, you can tell that kid, sort of tries to have his game be like Mitch Marner. He models his game after Mitch Marner, and you can tell, you can see it on the ice, and it's like one of those things where you're like, oh my god, am I getting to the point now where like I remember when Mitch Marner got drafted. Like I remember that World Juniors where he was, when I don't think he was captain that season, but like when he went to World Juniors, like when he won his Mem Cup with the London Knights and then came to the Leafs the season after and all that stuff, and and now there's like kids who like are like trying to model their game after him because like it's one of those things where you're like every year, World Juniors comes around and you get older, but the kids all stay the same age. It's like that Taylor Swift lyric. And, you see kids that are like, yeah, I just, grew up watching, being a fan of, Mitch Marner and Austin Matthews, try to model my game after them. And you're like, what do you mean you grew
What the
up?
fuck
Like,
do you mean you grew up watching them? It's like they've been in the league like 5 minutes.
no, it's like they're nearing like grizzled veteran territory.
Yeah, at what point do we start calling Mitch Marner and
What-
Austin Matthews grandpa?
At what point do we call Mitch Marner and Austin Matthews grizzled NHL veterans?
At what point does Mitch Marner reach fucking Peepaw stage? When does he earn that
When
title?
does he take over that title from Mark Giordano?
Oh god.
No, because I did see this, and this was something, I think this was oh yeah, so I'm trying to remember where I heard this, but I think it was a TSN broadcast, something or other. Yeah, TSN broadcast. And they were saying that they talked to some of these Team Canada guys, and they were like talking about their they were asking like, "Oh, what's your favorite World Junior like memory?" And they're like, "Oh, really really enjoyed, Alexis Lafreniere's watching Alexis Lafreniere in the World Junior tournament." Alexis Lafreniere was the first overall pick of the 2020 draft. That man is 22 years old. What do you mean he is your favorite childhood memory of this tournament?
Oh, I feel like this is the point where we just start to feel really old.
Yeah. Yeah, and we're not even that old. Like, we're only like 1 year out of our eligibility for this tournament, but it's like,
Yeah, damn it. If only last year I'd been available and I wasn't too busy for them.
yeah, no, we could have, I'm sure Connor Bedard needed the help last year.
Oh yeah. I mean, I trained with him a lot, He really learned a lot from me.
But yeah, so I think maybe we can go over sort of like our expectations in terms of medals. So based off of what I've said and you sort of glances at the roster, what is your podium? What is your medal podium for this tournament?
I want Canada to win.
Yes.
Yeah, we have to have
The
Canada.
Commonwealth reigns supreme.
No, we have to have, big up. It's like you're Canadian. I have family in Canada. It'd be rude.
It'd be rude.
Then I think we're gonna get US bronze, not bronze, silver, because they're gonna fight for this one more than usual. And then I don't know for third. I'm kind of I I want Norway.
You want the mirror. You can tell Marcie likes watching Miracle.
So much.
You can tell Marcie loves the underdog story by the fact that she said recently promoted 11th ranked Norway.
I love the narrative, I want to see them do well.
Alrighty, well,
if they get third, I'll sit there and I'll just sob. I'll be like, I'm so proud of them.
All right. My podium, obviously gold is Team Canada. I feel like I would have to burn my passport if I said otherwise. And then my second place, my silver medal, is going to be Team US. I feel like they have a really strong team this year, and they can make a jab at, not to make a jab, but they're going to be really competitive this year. And my third place is going to be Sweden. They have a really strong lineup in terms of just pedigree when it comes to NHL draft picks, and I think for sure, like they have a really strong blue line, which will help them for sure, definitely with having some really strong offensive teams that they're going to be going up against. In terms of Canada and Finland, so I think for sure that'll be something that'll help them get to the bronze medal match. So yeah, I don't think there's anything else we wanted to add in terms of if there's anything else last minute details or anything like that wanted to go over.
I think we've covered it pretty much everything.
Yeah, I think we have as well. Obviously, we went more detail into some teams than others, but it's really easy when to do this sort of research on these teams when A, you're familiar with the players, and B, you don't have to Google Translate every single article that you come across.
Yeah.
I was having to Google Translate a lot of tweets and a lot of articles because I don't know Swedish.
What do you mean you don't know Swedish?
Sorry, I am unfortunately not William Nylander.
Are you sure about that?
I am sure.
Here I was thinking, oh, we're gonna get the big I'm not actually Emma and William Nylander reveal. I was waiting for it.
Fortunately not. Well, that leaves us off. That's the end of this episode, this bonus episode, just to sort of make up with the fact that there will be no live episode on Christmas Day, obviously. But we are pre-recording this. We're recording this on the 23rd. So when you guys are listening to this, we will probably be opening. I mean, I will be opening presents. Marcie will probably be having Christmas dinner.
Yeah.
But yes, I'm so excited. I am thinking about the turkey I'm gonna get to devour tomorrow.
Oh my god, it's been a long time since I've had proper cooked food because I do not cook a lot at uni. It is a lot of pasta.
Oh yeah, it's a lot of pasta. I was on the university exam student diet, which consists of a lot of pasta. Yeah. So I feel you on that aspect. But yeah, so that'll leave us off for here. Thank you so much for listening. Hopefully you enjoyed the tournament. And hopefully go Team Canada. I'm not even going to hide the bias. I can't even sit here and be unbiased. I have a lot of fond World Junior memories when it comes to this tournament. So happy holidays. Merry Christmas if you celebrate. Hopefully, if you are listening to this on the 25th and not, afterwards, this was able to give you an opportunity to escape from your family if you needed it, to listen to something for an hour and just to escape the craziness. Thank you. Happy holidays. We will be back with a regular episode on the 28th of December, which is a Thursday. So we will be back to our regular schedule on Thursday with a big old recap of what we missed over our Christmas break, and also, of course, talking about the Leafs as always. So thank you for listening. This is From the Fourth Line. You can follow the show on Twitter at From the Fourth Line. That's fourth with a 4. You can follow either of us on Twitter at 60 Leafs for Marcie and at Pearby1 for me. I realize I never say actually how you spell Pearby1. It is always in the show notes, but I don't know if people actually look there. I spend so much time on those. I hope people look at there.
And they're just always you send thoughts and you send me, and I'm like, brilliant, wonderful, show something life-changing, jaw-dropping, every single time.
Yeah. So mine is at pear as in the fruit, and then B as in BEA1 as in the number. But yeah, that's where you can find us on Twitter. You can also find the show anywhere you get your podcast. Make sure to subscribe if you are, subscribe or follow if you aren't already. Give the show 5 stars. And of course, also as well, Spotify has this lovely feature where you can send us messages and share your thoughts on the show. We love when you guys do that. We love when you guys tweet out about the show or DM us or do that or anything. It brings us so much joy to read, and we get so happy and excited about it that people are enjoying the show and listening to it, because it is really, really great. So that is all. Thank you. We will see you guys again on the 28th, back with our regular scheduled content. Enjoy. Merry Christmas, and enjoy the tournament. Bye.
Bye.